Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and it's happened, guys.
We're in a brave new world of the old gods,
Oh
or
my
at least
gosh.
whispers from them.
It seemed like. Actually, no. I was about to say it seemed just like yesterday that we got a new expansion. No, it actually does seem like a long time.
Right? Right? Like, we've been with LOE for so long now. I'm ready for this expansion, right?
I'm
I am
totally
so
ready.
ready for this expansion to come in 2 months.
Right. And no matter what you think of the fact that, like all the cards won't be available, the fact that like this is a monumental expansion in terms of because they're phasing cards out for constructed, it's going to be huge. And that Blizzard is going to spend so much time on this expansion. So it's like double hype, right?
Yeah.
The amount of work that's going to be put in.
And if you don't know what we're talking about because you listen to our podcast but are otherwise completely disconnected from the Hearthstone world,
Hmm.
we thank you for choosing us as your go-to news source for Hearthstone. Two, we apologize because we're probably not the best news source, and you should probably also at least check out the internet. But what's happened is that Blizzard has announced this weekend, specifically on Friday, the next expansion for Hearthstone. It is Whisper of the Old Gods, and this expansion is going to circle around four of the old gods of Azeroth, which is the land that all the Warcraft universe is in.
Hmm.
And only one of these old gods, and they're all legendaries, of course, but only one of them has been revealed so far, and it's Cthulhu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Of all the things you pronounce incorrectly, you actually get this one right.
It that's what it looks like it should be pronounced. The things that I pronounce incorrectly generally don't look like the way you would pronounce it, or
Fire or
that I would
X.
pronounce it.
It literally is okay. If it was EI, then you saying Fury sounds maybe okay, but it is IE. Fiery. Fiery.
Wired? It's weird, right?
Huh?
WIE, is IE always pronounced?
Huh? No, no,
I?
no. Weird is EI.
Oh, is weird EI?
Yeah. Weird is
Man.
weird.
Okay, so we've established that an expansion is coming out in Hearthstone, and I can neither spell nor pronounce words.
Just remember, weird
Um,
is weird. It doesn't follow a normal,
but But Cthulhu is one of the more controversial cards that's come out in the arena because it is not going to come out in the arena at all. It's just it won't be there, and neither will his 16 follower cards that buff him in various ways. And
Yep.
we'll get to that. There's some controversy surrounding that. But the first point I kind of want to make about this expansion, the first thing that hit me really hard when I heard about this expansion is, wow, it is not coming out for a while.
I
It is
know.
coming out at the end of April or early May.
And we've just seen both extremes, right?
Hmm.
Like all the other releases before LOE were pretty typical in terms of the amount of hype versus how long you were strung along by Blizzard until they actually released the cards. But and LOE was them dropping a bombshell like, "Hey, it's coming out
Hmm.
Thursday," and we're like, "Whoa!" And this one, it's just like you're gonna be waiting for almost 2 months.
It's actually like it only I think it only feels that way, right? I mean, okay, we are actually gonna be waiting for almost 2 months, but I think it only feels really long because of LOE. Because LOE was so quick. LOE was we're releasing this in 5 days. By the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
right? Like, oh, you know what? The championships are over. The Blizzard championships they're over. So we just need a new meta right now. But this 1.5, I think it's technically like if they release it in the last week of April, which is my prediction, it's going to be 1 month and a half since a month and a half since the announcement, and that's exactly what happened in TGT.
Hmm. I actually it depends on sort of when the hype like the hype for TGT was a long time. I don't know when the announcement was. That I don't remember.
It was announced in the middle of April, and it wasn't released until like the second to last week of August.
Gotcha.
So we have a precedent for this. I was actually not very surprised by the release date. Internally, I've always been using the release date as if it were going to come out on the last week of April.
Right, right.
Um, But regardless, it is going to be a very long and slow road of hype. And this is actually what really surprised me was less that the release date is at the end of April, and more that they have released what exactly 6 cards so far that will be available in the arena that's not legendary, and we have had 3 days of release, including the big reveal on Friday.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're spacing out sort of this release, and they should. They have quite a few ways to go. The sort of trajectory seems like every single day there's going to be like at least one card revealed. Maybe we'll have a couple days
Do
with
you
no card
remember
reveal.
TGT? Like every day we got like 1 to 5 cards.
Yeah, well,
Like
you voted. You
right,
voted.
you voted, but not only that, they also gave cards to like streamers. They gave
Yes.
cards to like different like media outlets. They gave cards to like people media outlets of different languages. So you
Yeah.
covered all the markets. So we got like a good number of cards every day. And so when the final reveal of like the last few cards came out, it was like what, like 20 cards at the end, right? That last weekend where they were like,
Yeah,
now
something like
everything is
that.
on Facebook, and I scrolled through it. I was like, okay, so here are the remaining 20 cards out of the 130 you've been releasing.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if they're going to do that again this time, or if it's going to be more like a GVG thing where we really didn't have that much information about GVG before it was released. We knew like before the actual release, like the actual mass release of all the cards, we had about half, if that, of the cards revealed.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, this is just something I'm like, no matter what the speed of the release is, how you release it, like you can make us go on a treasure hunt to find the clue about the new cars. I think people will be very happy about that as well. We just want to see this. Like it's a cool carrot in front of us, right? That we
Yes.
just really want to see.
Hmm.
And not saying that like we're terribly bored of Hearthstone right now. We obviously play it even in our free time, but we do want to see something new. We're always looking to sort of conquer the next meta, right?
Yep. I feel like I know what this meta is about at this point. It hasn't changed in the last month and a half, like not even a little, and it's probably not going to change in the next month and a half. So it's this cycle. And Ben Brode was talking about it. I was reading an article, well, like an interview that Ben Brode and Mike Denice did on Polygon.com,
Hmm.
and like he mentioned it. They were asked specifically like, why is it so long? And he said, you can't. And I agree with this, and I kind of want to talk about this a little. About the direction of Hearthstone, in that you can't make everybody happy, right? Hardcore people like us,
Right.
okay, not like me specifically, but like hardcore players, like most likely the people who are listening to this podcast, we want content all the time, right? More content, the better. We'll pay the money. We'll, be engaged, and we'll keep playing. And the more content, you will never out content us. There's no release schedule that the developers can make where we're like, whoa, now stop giving us more stuff to play with. But that's not all the people. That's not even most of the people. Like, what Ben Brode said that really made an impression on me was that he there was someone that he knew that quit when Nax came out. He was having fun with Classic. He was having fun with Hearthstone. But once Nax came out and it was clear that there was going to be an expansion every like 4 months or so, he's like, I can't keep up. So this game it's done for me, right?
Yeah.
It goes to the same deal where a lot of players are not too big of a fan of DLCs or like continuous patching of games, even though it's become the new norm. You just want that feeling of I bought a game, this is the game, I'm playing the game now, rather than having to continuously keep up.
Definitely. It's a good point. And I think something that, because if you're listening to this podcast, there's a decent chance, because you're the type of person who seeks out additional information about Hearthstone, about the arena, you may also frequent, subreddits devoted to Hearthstone or the arena. You might go on Twitch. These are all things that are interconnected in a way. But if you look at how many people play Hearthstone overall, and I forget the number that Blizzard gives us, but it just
40 million accounts.
completely overwhelms the population of the Hearthstone subreddit, of Twitch. And
Hmm.
you do forget that a lot of these people are these quote, casual players who don't go on like forums and don't like watch Hearthstone in their
They
free time
actually
as
just
well.
play the game.
They just play the game. What a bunch of losers, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to have them just feel like they're getting a hang of the game and then to have the rug kind of pulled out under them, that's not that great of a feeling. And that's also why I don't understand the whole seasons and ranked is just 1 month. Like, why? Anyway, different story. That's kind of explaining the slower release. And if you guys remember, we're on pace, right? Like, we're actually on pace to release 3 per year. When did BRM come out? BRM came out in the beginning of April. That's what everyone says, right? But that's only when the first wing was released. BRM wasn't
Right.
finished until the end of April, and that's why I was pretty sure that end of April was going to be when this next expansion was going to come out, because they need to keep the schedule. If you bump this one up, well, now your next release is going to be a little bit farther. So far, what Blizzard does is there's a short release gap between one expansion and the adventure, and then there's a long release gap between the adventure release and the next big expansion release.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, this is something in which I think because we're in the moment right now, we're like, oh my gosh, it's so long. Oh man, like please just give us all of this good stuff right now and let us play with it. But
Mm-hmm.
look, I look forward to doing these weekly updates, seeing what cards
Yeah.
we have, and sort of raging and about the overpower cards and raging about the underpower cards.
So one of the you may be wondering, like, why are these guys talking about when Blizzard is releasing cards? Why are you not actually talking about the expansion? And there's a very good reason we haven't talked about the actual expansion and what's in it now. It's because we don't know. Nobody, well, maybe not nobody knows. Blizzard invited a select number of pro players and streamers and media people to some secret meeting like last week. So some people know some more information about the expansion than we do, but they're not allowed to tell you. So at least until like set times when Blizzard lets them and the NDA gets lifted. But Blizzard has so far, like I said, released exactly 6 non-legendary cards that is playable in the arena, and 1 legendary card that's playable in the arena. That's 7 cards altogether. That's it. If you remember when LOE came out, they released all the cards on the same day. When TGT came out, they released like 20 cards, or at least 12 cards on the first day. And then in the next 2 days, they released at least 5-6 more cards. We're not on that schedule. So what have we seen so far? Let's talk about what we have seen so far with the Whisper of the Old Gods. How are the cards, Merps?
They're well, I mean, like we haven't seen any like the thing I like is we haven't seen any
I
like
love the
aggro
hesitation.
replacements. Okay, like I was like, oh, where do I go with this? But we really haven't seen any aggro replacements. And this is something that we touched upon last time, in which like because they're going to have an eye towards constructed, maybe even more so than usual, right? And you're phasing out a lot of these aggressive cards. You haven't seen these replacements yet, but man, we have seen so little cards. And right now, I'm just like, I guess we'll wait.
Yeah. So the cards that we have seen so far, I think more to the point is that they're not special. They're not new. I'm getting the feeling, especially with the whole theme, and if you guys really haven't checked out the Whisper of the Old Gods, one of the big themes that they've released is that existing cards get quote-unquote corrupted. That doesn't mean they're out of the arena or anything. They just made a new card with kind of the picture of the same thing, and instead of calling it like Healbot, they call it Corrupted Healbot, and it like does some weird corrupted version of the thing that it was doing before, which sounds really cool and innovative, but from what we've seen in practice, it's cyclical. Like it's just the same thing. I wanted to use the word derivative, but like I don't mean it in a negative way.
Right.
It's just kind of very vanilla feeling, all of the cards that we've been seeing so far. And it could just be Blizzard didn't release the crazy cards yet, and there's just as much crazy cards as there are in the other expansions. But so far, like, what is a corrupted version of an existing card? It's kind of vaguely like the card that you're corrupting, right? You gotta have some kind of soul of the card thing going on before you corrupt it.
It seems to just be, and I think derivative is a good word, but it seems to be, and we can call it like tangential, like to the card itself. But there's always sort of a connection, right? Like we look at the basically double loot hoarder, like I call it. What's the actual name of this card?
Well, what do you think the actual name of the? Oh, actually, no. This is not corrupted loot hoarder.
It's
I thought it would be corrupted loot hoarder.
Exactly. It's what?
It's
Polluted.
Polluted Hoarder. It is a 4-mana 4/2 common neutral, and it has Death Rattle. Draw a card, much like a loot hoarder.
So double loot hoarder. That's the official name that Merps is gonna give it. Yeah, like you look at this card and you're just like, okay, is it gonna have big implications for the arena meta? And you're like, yeah, like it's a card that people are going to draft. It is definitely a very viable.
I'm going to qualify you when you say big implications of the arena meta. It's going to be seen a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, it won't shift
exactly
like the meta. Sorry,
exactly.
Sorry.
It's not changing the meta so much as it's just a new card that could just be inserted into the current meta.
Right. Look, it's not a shredder. It's not a kraken. It's not like a zombie chow. It's not any of these cards that when they were introduced actually like moved the sort of, you know, like it moved the meta, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not part of a package of themes like when you look at like Inspire or something and we're like, well, it's going to slow down.
Yeah.
Right? Or else you're not going to be able to use the Inspire mechanics.
Yeah. So like basically I'm not, and don't think of it as a knock on the card. You know,
no, not at all.
This is a good card.
Oh yeah.
It's just like something that, you know, loot hoarder, good on 2. You know, you draw a card. It's the same effect, right? It's understated for its cost, but it does something on the turn that it's dropped. Definitely, it has a slight chance of being able to kill the thing that is dropped on that turn, but it's usually understated. You know, like 2/3 versus a 4/5. But you're gonna see it unlock because people are gonna draft this a ton. Yeah. But yeah, like. This took very little creativity, right? This is like in TGT, you took the Argent Commander. It's like, let's half the Argent Commander, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And here, you took the
let's get an Argent Horse Rider.
Double.
And much in the same way that it fundamentally, like, you can't, sure, like, you're thinking, like, yeah, you double it, but Argent Horse Rider actually was really surprising to me. I rated it much lower, well, not that much lower, but like 10 points lower than where it ultimately ended up, because there is a difference once you change it, right? The 2/1 body can be pinged away, whereas the 4/2 body can't. In the same way, when you grow it, the 2/1 body can be pinged away, the 4/2 can't, but also, when you're using it as a drop, the 2/1 body can actually take care of a 3-drop. The Polluted Hoarder is just going to get wrecked by whatever 3-drop or 2-drop or, you know, anything that your opponent puts out at that point. So it's not a drop card the same way a Loot Hoarder kind of, sort of, maybe sometimes is.
Right.
It's very much like the Gnomish Inventor, right? Which is the reverse Gnomish Inventor, and you get your card later. But I think it's going to be better than a Gnomish Inventor. And I think it's going to be better than a Gnomish Inventor because if you think about Druid of the Flame, how often do you make it a 2/5 and how often do you make it a 5/2?
The only reason you make it into a 2/5 is because specifically on turn 3, a 2/5 is really good. Exactly. A 2/5 is fantastic for turn 3 afterwards. And look, we're not going to talk about, you know, this board state versus that board state. Obviously, if you have like 200 creepers on their board, you're not going to be like, yeah, 5/2. But most of the time, you're making the 5/2 after turn 3 because that's when you want the Ice Rager, right?
And like, especially with an anti-tempo card like this, you're going to be playing it well after turn 4. You're not going to be playing this on turn 4. So the fact that it's a 4/2 is a lot better than a 2/4. And its drawback that it's a Death Rattle instead of a Battle Cry is going to matter, but I don't think it's going to matter as much as the better stat distribution for when you would want to play this card.
Right. And this totally makes it, like, I think this is very balanced in comparison to Loot Hoarder. And don't just look at it in terms of like, oh, they doubled the stats and doubled the cost. Oh yeah, of course, it's like that. Like, if you look at the stats that you're giving up for Polluted Hoarder, you're giving up 3 stats, right? For the Loot Hoarder, you're only giving up 2 stats. So this costs more and you're giving up more stats, but like we said, it's the ping consideration.
Yep.
Right?
You can't ping it down. It actually gives you another card.
It actually, right. It is 4 damage that they can't eliminate for quote free with their hero power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like tempo aside. So this just has that on the loot hoarder, and then obviously the loot hoarder is better on turn 2 because you don't always have turn 1s. Like very often you have turn
I
3.
mean, I think it's kind of. I know you're comparing to the loot hoarder a lot, but I think it's really like that's like almost like a red herring because it's called the polluted hoarder, and that's how they grew the card.
Yeah, I do
But it's
think
really a gnomish inventor.
it really is. It's a reverse Gnomish Inventor. You get the
Yeah.
better stats, but you get the delayed draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So we're also, by the way, the Lightforge is. I know we did this in LOE where we reviewed every single card that LOE came out, but that was 45 cards over the course of 5 weeks. This is gonna be like more than 100 cards over the course of probably a similar amount of time. So we're not actually going to review every card. We're certainly not going to review the legendaries, but we figure for today because there's so few cards coming out, we'll say a couple words on each of them.
Yeah. Also, it's just fun, and I want to do it.
All right, so let's look at a rare neutral now. Corrupted Healbot. It's 5 mana, 6/6, and it's a mech. So first of all, I like that it's a mech because
Yes.
mechs have been kind of abandoned since they came out, and that's not cool to just wholesale abandon a very important like part of the arena meta for when it came out. And so I like that there are more mechs. Even if there's not that many things that take advantage of mechs, I want a lot of things to have the base of mechs. That's how beasts work, right? That's how demons work.
Right. So, do you want to go first on this, or should I?
Yeah, so it's a 5 mana 6/6, but that's not all, obviously. It has a death rattle that's restore 8 health to the enemy hero. I'll go first on it. It's obviously a good card, right? 5 mana 5/6 is a really amazing card. 5 mana 6/6 is even better, and the death rattle is not like a Nubar ambusher, which is what you typically think of when you think of it's one it has a bad death rattle, but it's one stat overstated. So it takes care of 4/6s, it takes care of the 5/6s, it takes care of the weird 2/6s that we've seen pop up. So I like it. Of course, restoring 8 health to the enemy on turn 5, you're probably going to actually restore some health to your enemy. It's not like you put Zombie Chow turn 1 and they don't get any health. I mean, there's a chance that they don't get any health, but if you haven't hit your opponent yet by this point, you're not looking so good, right? Like you're reactive on the board. Yeah, you put down a 6/6, but that 6 attack is probably not going to matter. Your opponent's probably going to kill this minion with like smaller minions. So in the instance in which the 8 health doesn't matter, the 6 attack also probably doesn't matter. When the 6 attack matters, the 8 health is probably going to matter somewhat. But I still think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a situation where, like, Zombie Chow is just brokenly good in the arena, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just that good. Here, it's going to be a good card. People are going to pick it. You should pick it. You're going to see this card. Man, that death rattle in exchange for 1 attack, like, most of the time you want it, but, like, it really does prevent it from being, like, a premium card.
Oh, it's definitely not. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
a premium
exactly.
card.
Like that is a huge sort of sacrifice that you make because, like you said, you're going to a lot of the times, it is really significant. And 8 health, like because of the tempo playstyle that really dominates the arena right now,
Mm-hmm.
getting 1 stat, sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes that will lose you the game,
Yep.
And yeah, you could say Zombie Chow loses you the game too, but the benefit of Zombie Chow is just so good. Like the flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And over here, it's like you're just devoting your entire turn to this big sort of stat stick, right?
Yep.
It's just a stat stick with no real initiative coming onto the board. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely it's going to win you a couple games because of that one attack, but it's going to lose you quite a few games too.
Yeah. So far we have 2 cards that are good in the arena, but that have their downsides. They're probably both going to be somewhere between a 60 and a 70, I would say, on our current scale.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. And the fact is, we just really don't know right now because we don't know what the other 100 cards are. So, like, that's going to change the meta. We're trying to plug this into the current meta, and this card is never going to see this current meta.
Who knows? There might be a spell. It's like if you have a death rattle mech minion, deal 20 damage to the opponent. We're like, oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. And then we're going to very briefly talk about this next card. You get 1 sentence, I get 1 sentence, and we're moving on. It is 4 mana, 2/4. It's a rare, it's a neutral. It is called Eater of Secrets.
Can I have a run-on sentence?
Sure. And the Eater of Secrets has the following text: Battle Cry. Destroy all enemy secrets. Gain +1/+1 for each. So let me say something first, and then you can have your run on. I will say my 1 sentence about this card. And that sentence is bad. Okay.
I agree.
Moving on. Validated Doomsayer. What was that just like a red herring that you just threw at me? You asked for permission to do a run-on sentence, and then you say a 2-word sentence?
I don't know. You kind of knocked me off, you know. I was about to say stuff like, in comparison to Kazan Mystic and all this stuff, it's just not as good, obviously. Like, I'd much prefer you get the secret instead of just +1/+1 worth of stats. And if you don't hit it, then you prefer 4/3 over a 2/4.
Okay,
obviously.
that's way too much analysis. This
See,
was made to
that
kill
was my run-on
Secret
sentence.
Paladin.
Like, why did you
need
ask?
multiple secrets for this to happen.
You shouldn't
You're
have
not
asked
going to
me.
see multiple secrets.
Exactly. So it's
Done.
worse than a Kazan Mystic.
Way worse. Way worse. It's bad.
Okay.
And you agree.
I agree.
All right. One more neutral card. Validated Doomsayer. Epic. This one is actually, I think, the most interesting card that's come out. Well, one of two of the interesting cards that have come
I
out
love
so
it.
far.
No, so not in terms of score, in terms of design, right? I think it's a really cool design.
Yep. So it's a validated Doomsayer. Like, you remember Doomsayer in the normal game? It's a 0/7, 2 mana, and then it clears the board if it survives a turn at the beginning of your turn. Well, this one doesn't do that. That's why it's 5 mana. He has been validated. He is 0/7, and on the next turn, he becomes a 7/7. I don't know how this works lore-wise. Why, if the end didn't really come, he becomes super powerful for regardless. He does not. He is a 0/7 on the board until the start of your next turn, and then he's a 5 mana 7/7. So your take first.
Yeah, so this is a card in which at first I was looking at it, I'm like, oh man, this isn't that great. Like, you need to be sort of ahead to use it. And I was like, no, like, even so, one of the good things about Doomsayer, especially in the early turns on turn 2, it was impossible to get rid of, right? Like, 7 health is really annoying. It's part of the reason why Archmage, even on turn 6, is still not that bad. Here, you have a validated Doomsayer coming out on turn 5, and if you're just going 1-for-1 with your opponent, they shouldn't have the amount of minions, or sorry, the amount of attack necessary to be able to kill off 7
Exactly.
health. So if you're just strictly going 1-for-1, it's fine because they could bump into it, and the next turn you can have like a 7/3, right? A 7/3 to trade into their guy, and it's fine.
But it's not just you're just looking at it on the board. You also just gain the equivalent of like 4 health because he couldn't attack your face. They had to hit into this thing.
Exactly. Yep. But look, there's obvious downsides, right? You got the silences, you got the reversing switches, the Kodos, and if you're behind on the board, if they choose to trade into it, you deal no damage, right? If, like, obviously you prefer a pit fighter to this, like,
of course,
almost every single time. But it's not a terrible card, and I love the design of it because it really kind of opens up sort of all these board states and all of these like possibilities. Right now, like Crazed Alchemist and all of these reversing switches get additional use, and you also have this interplay on the board. Like Eerie Statue, even though it is a terrible card, the design idea is cool. Whenever they introduce something new like that, I'm like, great, fantastic, introduce new things. We don't just want like Ironforge Riflemen, improved Ironforge Riflemen, like veteran Ironforge Riflemen. Yeah, basically. So yeah, having this stuff I think is just fantastic for the health of the game.
Yeah, and it's an epic. You won't see it very often, especially as an epic neutral. But it kind of feels epic, right? It's one of those weird cards. Epics are known to be like a little bit wonky and weird. And look, when you make a card situational, it's just not going to be that good unless its upside is incredibly good. This is like a hedge. Its upside is not that great, but it's also not like it's just a '07, right? It's most likely going to become, like Merp said, like a 7/3 or something and take up an attack. And imagine if you had another minion on the board. Well, now, right, like pretend you have this validated Doomsayer, but you also have a Croc left over. Your opponent wants to kill the Croc with his like Yeti or whatever, but he also really doesn't want you to have a 7/7. So he may hit in with this the Yeti into the '07 to make it into a 7/4, and then your Croc gets to live another turn, right? Like a lot of weird things happen when you put this on the board. Even if you don't like have the board, so to speak, as long as you're fighting for the board, it's it's a playably like questionably good card. It's just never going to beat a pit fight or anything like that. This isn't going to be one of those overpowered cards, but it's very interesting, and that's what we want. We want some more interesting cards like this. But again, not changing the meta. It's an epic card, and it hardly looks like it's part of any kind of theme that's going on with the old gods here. So as a one-off card, it'll add some interestingness to the arena, but I can also see myself getting super salty when my opponent plays this. It's basically asking for you to get salty.
Of course.
Let's go with Hogger. It's a legendary. It is a neutral card. Hogger, the Scourge of Elwynn. And it's a 7 mana 6/6. When this minion is damaged, summon a 2/2 null with taunt.
Yeah. So we have we have sort of a like Trogzor situation, right? Where you have the same stats, and then this sort of I mean, man, like what deck do you create out of this in constructed?
One of those like I was gonna say Death Spite, but Death Spite's no longer in constructed. But
No.
something like that, right? Like somewhere where you can deal a lot of damage to yourself, to your own minions as well. I don't know. Regardless, in the arena, it's not good.
No, it definitely isn't. So, and here's the thing: if you look at it in terms of even
Like it's understated.
yeah, yeah. It's understated, and the problem is, no matter how many 2/2 little guys you summon, you're sort of walking into AOE, right?
Yep.
And you want to damage this quite a few times to get all the taunts, but the more you damage this, the more you have this guy susceptible to the AOE, which they need anyways.
And you can only damage this if you have the initiative to begin with. So half the time your opponent just picks it off as something with 6 health.
Right, right. So look, I'm going back to Arena for a second, and I mean this card it's bad. For 7 mana, you want something.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
No.
For a legendary, it seems like it's bad.
Yeah,
it's an okay card, like by itself.
Right. Look, in an arena meta where you're taking understated cards all the time, or you're taking like Murloc Raiders and stuff,
Well, we're not even close to that. I think this is like around where like a Croc would be.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Like,
It's understated. It has an upside, right?
Yep. It's like would you rather have this or a fossilized Devilsaur, right? I'd rather have this guy.
Maybe. It depends on the deck, right?
All right. Let's go to 2 class cards have been revealed. We'll go to the one that's less interesting first. It's an epic hunter card, and it is called Giant Sandworm. It has not been corrupted. It's just a sandworm, and it is big. It is an 8 mana 8/8. It is a beast, and its card text says if this minion attacks another minion and kills it, it can attack again. So it kind of has Wind Fury.
Yeah. So I like this, right? It's a new mechanic. It's not new, sorry. Wind Force has been around for forever, but it's conditional Wind Force.
Wind
right?
Force? Wind Force? Are
Sorry.
we nostalgic about the good old Diablo days?
I was actually just talking about Diablo with someone yesterday. So yes, Wind Force. This has Wind Force, and he's able to trade it for 40 SOJs. Anyways, but yeah, it's basically conditional Wind Fury, and I think that's really cool because this introduces a mechanic where you can get an additional 8 damage on the face by trading into minion, or you can double trade, right? And this has a sort of like this has a sort of like pseudo faux Reaper effect in terms of like, you put it out there and you want to be able to like clear the board, right? It gives you a
Hmm.
big clear instead of just a small clear with Unleash the Hounds, which we see.
Yep.
But it's an epic card. We're not going to see it that often, so
Yep. And it's also 8 mana card in Hunter. So that in and of itself is not all that great. And it's a card that's specifically designed so you can't Wind Fury his face.
Yeah.
So it's it is a beast though. So you're gonna start getting it out of Ram Wranglers and like web spinners and things like that. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll show up more often than you think because of Ram Wrangler and web spinner.
Oh, definitely. But you know what this is like? It's like when kids are sitting at the dinner table, right? And the parents
Mm-hmm.
are like, you have to eat your Brussels sprouts first before you can,
Yeah.
go and play. This is like, all right, you have to trade on the board first before you can
Before you can
play.
go face, yeah. And it can like one thing that's important to know also is that it could kill multiple minions.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, definitely.
every attack can be chained. It's essentially like a board clear if you leave it alone,
Mhm.
up to 8 health, because presumably the 8 damage is going to kill anything you're putting out on the board. So like it's a good card. It's always kind of troubling, right, as the hunter to be taking something like even a Kraken, much less this card, which has no initiative. You just like plop it on the board and you hope for the best, right? At least Kraken deals 4 damage to something as soon as it comes out.
Oh, yeah.
This one, like, you gotta pray. So its upside is big, but it's very hard to pull off consistently.
Yep.
Okay, and now I think this is my favorite card so far that they've revealed, which is not that hard because they've only revealed 7 cards, I think,
Right.
that actually are in the arena. So this one is a Paladin card, and so it's going to be the best card ever. And it's not only a Paladin class card; it's a Paladin class common.
Hmm.
So we're looking at like Keeper of Oldham levels here. It is Stand Against Darkness,
That's the wrong
five
name.
mana
You got it wrong.
spell. Huh?
It's the wrong name. It's Musterer for battle.
Oh, sorry. I called it by the name that Blizzard gave it rather than its actual true name.
Musterer for battle.
So Musterer for battle summons 5/1/1 Silverhand recruits for 5 mana. Now, you may be thinking, wait, that seems pretty bad because Muster for Battle gives you a Light Justice and 3/1/1 recruits, which sounds like kind of the same thing as what this Musterer for Battle does, but it costs 2 mana less. And you would be right. This is not a good card.
Good job, hypothetical you.
I'm so glad hypothetical you got this right because it is a bad card. It's not an awful card. It's a playable card, right? You still get 5/5 stats no matter how you look at it for 5 mana, which, by the way, is slightly understated. It can be cleared by any kind of board clear whatsoever. It pretty much plays into a board clear, and it's over mana'd. Now, you can tell what it's designed for, right? Silverhand recruits have synergy now with certain cards like Horse Rider, like Quartermaster, and you can do some like crazy stuff when it comes to constructed. But in the arena, you really can't. So we're looking at kind of just a pretty understated card here.
Yeah. So, guys, when we say that a card is bad, we understand how that, because bad can mean quite a few things. This is not actually a like bad, and like if you look at our tier list, we have a column that's like bad, right? No, I mean this is a fine card. You're gonna pick this sometimes. It's just in compare. Okay, you compare anything to Muster for Battle, and it is gonna pale in comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you look at sort of the downsides of this. It costs more. You get less. And like the costing more, you can break that down into like less flexibility, right? The
Mm-hmm.
fact that the 1/1s are much less applicable on turn 5
Mm-hmm.
than
And
on
the
turn.
1/1s will never live to see another day after you hit into something, right? Whereas if you just had a 5/5 on the board, it could.
Right, right. Now, what this does well is, it does some of the same things that Muster for Battle does. It guarantees you board presence, right, into like a future turn. But one of the things that was so OP about Muster for Battle wasn't just the fact that, like you got the weapon, it was cheaper, everything. It perfectly curved into turn 4, right, where you
Mm-hmm.
had Blessing of Kings, where you just like it was the progression of from turn 2, muster for battle was like the best thing you could do on turn 3. Like,
Yeah, okay. I don't think we need to tell people how good Muster for
yeah,
Battle
yeah,
is.
okay, that's
Or, like, I don't think anyone's really looking at this and thinking that it's anywhere near on par with Muster for Battle, but it's going for that kind of same effect, where Paladins summon lots of little dudes, which, to be fair, we haven't seen the Paladin do a lot of up until this
no,
point.
we haven't.
Even though it's very thematic, right, with the hero power.
Right. I was about to say, I'm like, well, it's very similar to Silver Hand Regent, the other Paladin card, and then you're like, well, that's a neutral card, and we've had this conversation before. It's like, why can everyone summon these dudes? Don't these dudes have any loyalty to the Paladin?
No, they don't.
Not. But
no, they don't. They are now corrupted by the old gods.
yeah, but like I think a good comparison is Silver Hand Regent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at that and you get the same amount of stats, but you get to consolidate some of those stats into a 3/3, and so you get a 3/3.
And you get to do it again the next turn if it lives.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Silverhand Knight, right, is 6 stats for 5 mana. This is not 6 stats, 12 stats for 5 mana. This is 10 stats for 5 mana, and you get more 1/1s. The way the way it trades on the board is, imagine you have a 5/5 and it eats a croc. That's the equivalent of having like a 5/1 and then a 5/3 on the board, and you trade your 5/1.
You both get 10 stats. It's the exact same thing.
With Silverhand Knight.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Silverhand Regent. I was like,
no, you were talking about Silverhand Regent. I'm talking about Silverhand Knight now.
Too many Silverhand things.
Yeah, and not paladins, just like neutral cards. But yeah, so it's not a good card, and this is important, right? I told you this is basically my favorite card they've revealed so far, and this is my favorite card because they've managed to create a paladin minion that seems like it could have cool implications for constructed, that is not just insanely powerful in the arena. They did it. This was wonderful in terms of like arena balance, like directions. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing to see, and hopefully that's why they made it a common, in that they kind of recognized it and they were like, wow, this will be a nice way to balance the paladin a little in the arena and knock it down a peg. There's nothing inherently great about the paladin in the arena. It just has the most overpowered cards. So once it gets diluted down, you'll see the paladin's power level drop like pretty clearly. And this is unlike, let's say, the rogue or the mage, which actually their hero powers are kind of ridiculous.
Think of it this way. Instead of increased offering rates for Keeper, you have increased offering rates for this.
Yep.
I think a lot of people will be happy about that.
Yep, I will be very happy about that. Very, very happy about that. And also, it's a cool card to use, because there's no other card like it. So when you play it, well, it's like Dark Whispers for Druid, right? Which actually costs 1 mana more than this. But you never use it to get 5 Wisps. It'll be cool to see used against you, and it'll be cool to use yourself. In case you're wondering, the actual application in the arena for this card is twofold. One is that unless you get board cleared, it guarantees that you'll have something to buff, which could be important as a paladin. Definitely. And 2, you can get like a good 6 damage on your opponent almost guaranteed if they don't taunt and they're just trying to remove your minions, because it's freaking ridiculous to try to kill all these 1/1s. So if you have a kind of an aggressive agenda, then when you start running out of cards, this is not that awful of a card to play. You'd rather play this than you would a 5/5, by far.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that kind of wraps it up for us in terms of the cards that have been released, because like we said, they didn't release many cards. But we are not done with our Whispers of the Old Gods analysis yet. I want to go a little meta, not just in the game, but in the whole game design and how Blizzard is thinking about things. The LOE, I think, had a lot of arena cards in it. It had a lot of cards that were viable in the arena, that saw a lot of play in the arena, and the set was only 45 cards, but probably like 30 of them are above average arena cards. And there were 2 commons for each class, which means that, and again, for an adventure, the rarity distinctions really don't mean anything because you get them through the adventure anyway, so it's just for arena. And so it really affected arena balance and a lot of things in the arena a lot. You saw the warrior become what it is today, which is an actual class. And you saw, a keeper of Oldemons doing weird things with the meta, Ethereal Conjure. Like, it created a very different and good thing in the arena. And there were some cards that affected Constructed too, but those were just like individual cards, whereas most of the set is not. Yeah, this is kind of seen as a fun set. Whispers of the Old Gods. I always want to say Wrath of the Old Gods. Whispers seems so weak.
I know.
This seems like it's going in the opposite direction, right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Okay, no, sorry, I have to make a comment. Now that you said Wrath of the Old Gods, when you first said it, I was like, that's just the title, dude.
Yeah, right? Like, that's what feels like a very, I don't know, like this kind of world kind of name.
I had to get that out there, because when you first said it, I was like, wait, why are you just rehashing? That's not the title of this expansion.
It's Whispers.
Oh my gosh.
Insidious Whispers.
Insidious. Yes, definitely.
Again, not good at pronouncing things, not good at spelling things.
No. What were we talking about before?
Before we started talking about the Wrath of the Old Gods?
That was the only thing on my mind now.
The fact that this is a constructed kind of expansion.
Yeah, it definitely is. And look, this is very early on, right? But it definitely seems like they want thematic decks, right? And whenever you have thematic decks and lots of synergies with each other, that's what you're talking about constructed, right? Because arena is going to be all about the Yetis, the pit fighters, the zombie chows, and all of these like the good situational cards. They're the ones that play off of the basic sort of like board presence, card advantage, all these basic tenets of arena. And then you have your like super situational cards that like really don't get any play, like Junkbot, right?
Yeah.
Junkbot, it needs mechs. Like, it doesn't just need board presence or tempo or something. Like, Cult Master is still good in arena because it's dependent on one of these tenets. Junkbot requires lots of mechs. And what you're afraid of is that, like, if these are all about the gods and all, these synergistic decks, then yeah, it's definitely going to be more constructed focused.
Yeah, and I think the key, the most like damning piece of evidence that it's constructive focus is Cthulhu, right? Everybody gets Cthulhu as soon as this is released. You don't even have to buy any pack. You'll get 3 free packs too, apparently, but you'll get Cthulhu and you'll get one of his followers, which is. Let me bring up his followers. It's called the Beckoner of Evil.
Right.
Which is you also get 2 copies of this card. It's a 2 mana, 2/3, and it has a battle cry that says, give your Cthulhu +2/+2 wherever it is. Like, if it's in your deck, I don't know, there's no graveyard mechanics yet, so just if it's in your deck, I guess, or if it's on the board, or if it's in your hand. So, obviously, giving Cthulhu +2/+2 is pretty good, but otherwise, it's a crock, right? And none of these cards, and there's going to be 16 of these cards plus Cthulhu, so 17 collectible cards from the Whisper of the Old Gods expansion, will not be available in the arena at all. And so far, the Beckoner of Evil, by the way, doesn't look too offensive, right? And then the other one that they've released so far is Twilight Elder, which is a 3 mana 3/4. At the end of your turn, give Cthulhu +1/+1 wherever it is. Again, not that 3 mana 3/4 seem pretty standard these days. So none of these are going to be in the arena because, and I'm quoting Blizzard dev team, senior dev team member Mike Denice here, they played with it. They played with the arena, their version of the arena, after they inserted all these cards into the card pool, and they felt bad when they had to draft these cards and play these cards because they know there was no Cthulhu. They weren't going to draft Cthulhu. Cthulhu is a legendary card, and so no one's going to have Cthulhu in their decks. And so it felt kind of out of place. There was like this dissonance in picking these cards and then not being able to do anything with these cards. It's like picking a mad scientist in a non-secret class.
Right. Or
right?
the secret is legendary. Like you only have
Right,
legendary secrets.
right.
Yeah.
So their way to solve this problem is just to take these cards out of the arena. Now, this has caused some kind of a controversy. It's not a huge controversy, but it does have two very clear factual. No matter which side of this discussion you're on, it has two effects. One is it sets a precedent where Blizzard is now going to decide what cards make it to the arena and what cards don't make it to the arena. It's not just a pure like whatever happens in constructed arena gets these things, and two, it's going to result in less cards available in the arena. This expansion is going to have only the expansion is only like 134 cards altogether. You subtract the 17 cards, 16 of which are not legendary, I assume. Maybe one of Cthulhu's followers is a legendary, but assuming they're not all legendary, that'll even have a disproportionate effect. So the 17 fewer cards is actually going to make a bigger impact on the arena than it seems. But still, that's like 10%, more than 10% fewer cards in the expansion for the arena. So that's a real thing. And also, the story about how like they decided to not include this in the arena is, it's very obvious that they developed these cards without any thought to the arena. And then they were already in the testing phase where they inserted these cards in the arena before someone was like, all right, I don't like this. Because the cards were already made. They weren't changing the cards for the arena or anything. They probably didn't even think about the arena when they were making those cards. And they didn't think about excluding them from the arena when they were making the cards. It was only after the cards were made and they were put in the arena pool and someone played it. And they're like, well, I don't like it. I think there's a problem. And so they came up with a solution, which is to remove it. Obviously, I care a lot. And you hear this a lot whenever I talk about this. I care a lot about how Blizzard is seeing the arena. And they're definitely paying more attention to it these last few months than they have before that, where it was basically like hard to tell that they ever thought anything about the arena. But clearly, right, in the design of the Wrath of the Old Gods, this is still arena was very much of an afterthought.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's not a huge surprise, right? Like they're gonna look after constructed first, and then they're gonna think about the arena. Ultimately, I think it's a little bit too early to decide whether or not leaving out these cards is a good idea because
Mm-hmm.
you have 16 support cards, right? You have your
Yep.
16 support cards. We've seen two of them, and it makes sense. It just makes so much sense from a hype and PR perspective to put out the crazy cool legendary and put out the
Mm-hmm.
boring support cards first, right? Like
Yep.
just showcase the fact that hey, look, these cards are going to support Cthulhu, and let's look at the most basic one. Like, what's more basic than adding stats, right? Like, here you buff your god. So it makes sense that we might have seen sort of like the most vanilla of these support cards and maybe the crazy support cards. And I'm not created enough to think of super crazy mechanics here, but maybe they are just not appropriate for the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do sympathize with Blizzard as well. Like, if you keep on seeing these cards, and it's 16 cards, so I'm guessing you're going to see it quite a lot.
Yeah, with an offering bonus.
Oh gosh, yeah, with an offering bonus as well. And look, all of the kind of hardcore arena players are like, oh no, I'll just look at it as a croc. I'll look at it as a
Yeah.
spider tank. Yeah, I mean, I will too. It doesn't make it any better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do see a lot of these stats that have no application. It just like
Until it does.
until you make Golden, basically, right? Until you have like the double Cthulhu, like
Yeah.
you're just gonna see if they allowed it.
Oh man, if they had double Cthulhu, it would go on both Cthulhu's.
Oh,
Ooh.
oh,
Ooh.
oh man.
They gotta have mechanics for that too, because you can actually have double Cthulhu's. You can like,
Yeah.
gang up or whatever, right? There's ways to get multiple Cthulhu's.
Yeah, you can get multiple Cthulhu's. Yeah, people are exploring that right now. But yeah, like, look, I understand it from Blizzard's perspective, but so for myself, the jury is still out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I want to see all these other cards, and if they're just like cards which are not super crazy, I'm like, yeah, I would have liked to have it, but I understand for the entire player base, which is something we've been talking about today,
Yes,
maybe it's not
exactly.
appropriate. Yeah.
Exactly. I like I just set up the premise, right, from a very arena centric point of view. In
Right,
terms
right.
of this particular change, I really like I really like the fact that they're going to exclude it. I'm sure there's going to be some cards, a fair amount of cards that are excluded that are not properly statted, in which buffing Cthulhu is is something major that it does, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
otherwise like a 3 mana 1/1 or some stupid thing like that, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and those are the cards that kill the arena. If you have too many of those, and someone is like, if you're forced to take like a junk bot or like a ancestral's call or a, I don't know, bolster, right? If those are somehow your options, you have a way worse deck than the people you're facing in the arena. So in arena, the card, the like kind of vanilla-y or very simple combo-y card quality range has to be within a certain range, and the outliers have to be very few and very far between. That sometimes you may be forced to pick a okay card that doesn't fit your deck, or even a bad card that fits your deck, but you should never be offered a choice of three terrible, terrible cards that don't match up with even like a croc.
Right. Like if you look at stat distributions, like just imagine if you had to pick sort of like yeah, like a junk bot or magma rager with Cthulhu upside, right? In the
Right.
arena, it's like not actual upside, and you're just forced to take those as well. It is a bad feeling, not just like when you take a magma rager.
Yeah.
It is like this could have been better, and
Mm-hmm.
that feeling sucks.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not even talking about the feeling, right? I'm talking about the objective like
Right,
arena
right.
balance here.
Just taking
Like,
it
yeah,
sucks.
just taking it. It's really bad. Like, imagine if you have these offerings and you have like a 3 mana 1/1, a 4 mana 2/2, and a 5 mana 3/3 that buff Cthulhu, and those are your options because we're in a WOD now, Whisper of the Old Gods, and your opponent has like a Yeti, a Croc, and a Spider
Did you
Tank.
just say WOD?
Yeah, isn't that the abbreviation for Whisper of the Old Gods? I think that's the abbreviation for Whisper of the Old Gods.
WOTG?
Oh, WOG. I can't spell. I'm sorry.
D Whisper of the Dogs? Whisper
Dods.
of the Old.
Of the old Dods. Okay, so we've really established that I can't spell today. Or
That's
that
spelling.
today
That's
we.
identifying letters. This is like
That's what spelling is.
no. This is identifying the no. You're not putting them in a specific order. It's like, do you know the difference between D and G?
No. It's do you know the first letter of the word God and which letter that is? That's spelling. Anyway,
Oh man. Okay, we
Anyway,
can talk about this some other time.
let's not
All right,
expand
okay.
the world of my deficiencies to larger than they are, because they're large enough.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, yeah. So I can see that in that kind of case, you would have like this really crappy arena deck, or you have a good deck with this like blight on it. And yeah, I'm all for RNG, and I'm all for the randomness of a draft and getting a new deck each time. But sometimes you gotta limit it. And so I'm thinking, and this is me giving Blizzard the benefit of the doubt here, that there are actually a good amount of these cards coming up. And the other way to do it is to make them, epics and whatever. But even that, there's kind of a feeling disconnect. So I don't feel too poorly about it. But if you remember, if you watched or listened to the Lightforge last week, what I wanted in the next expansion, right? Something that I wanted was more vanilla cards. Like, these two cards, Beckoner of Evil and Twilight Elder, the 2/3 and the 3/4, basically vanilla that do nothing, that were neutral commons, that's exactly the kind of cards I want to have more of. Like, interesting cards are nice, but the offering rates of what are more or less generic, like statted cards that are, X+1 attack X health, or the reverse, where X is equal to the mana cost, that has to be the bread and butter of the game. Or else it's just you go into this crazy territory where nothing's predictable, and you're just throwing cards out onto the board in the arena, and skill becomes like this much weirder and less well defined thing. So I hope they have a large number of Beckoner of Evil or Twilight Elder like cards that just don't happen to buff Cthulhu, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
I do want the vanilla cards, and I know a lot of people don't like the vanilla cards, and it's actually why they kind of support not including these. I'm the opposite. I'm supporting this because I'm assuming that they're going to release more cards that are weird and that are really bad for the arena that buff Cthulhu.
Yeah.
But for these two cards should be in the arena, and they should have different versions of these without the Cthulhu part into it, and they should put those in the arena with this expansion.
Right. Like,
Because otherwise, they're just going to keep diluting it, right?
it would just be so funny if it was like it's like Murloc Raider with Cthulhu bonus, Croc with Cthulhu bonus, Spider Tank Cthulhu bonus.
16 cards, all neutral, well-statted minions that are vanilla cards with Cthulhu bonus, and they exclude all of it.
Exactly. And we have our first 7-mana 7/8, you know? Like, ooh.
Yeah. And it's Cthulhu
bonus. Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, I'm not going to be very nice to Mike. To Mike Denies for making the suggestion in the Blizzard dev team. Because at that point, then you're going purely with like feeling, right? Versus versus a well-balanced meta.
Right, right.
And that's that would be very bad. But I'm thinking they'll do cool things with Cthulhu. I'm thinking Cthulhu won't just have 17 cards that are just like, neutral supporting cards.
We'll see.
But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, something that so I think we're both on the side where we're supportive of Blizzard for this because we can see how it kind of goes off the rails. And the one part that I don't, and I don't really care too much about it at this point because Blizzard has really paid quite a lot of attention to the arena relative to where they were before, like in the past few months. But in terms of card development, right, they still just developed a bunch of cards, not only without arena in mind, but that was so incompatible with arena, apparently, that they couldn't even release it into the arena, and they didn't catch it until they had already tested it by putting it in the arena in their internal servers. Like, let's think about this card from an arena perspective for at least this expansion, or at least the Cthulhu cards, didn't enter into play when they were designing the cards. It entered into play after the cards were already designed.
Just it's definitely worrisome.
Right? Like, yeah. It's one thing to say, like, oh, we'll have certain cards designed for Constructed and not for Arena, and that'll be fine. It's another to, like, go into, like, have a little peek into their troubleshooting process, and it's happening after the card design phase. So, like, on the other hand, there are certain other cards in OE or whatever where you're looking at it and you're like, well, clearly this was designed with Arena in mind, right? Like, or even, like, Variant Rin or, like, whatever, right? So yeah. It happens in the other way as well. But shouldn't every card be designed with both game modes in mind, even if one's taking precedence over the other? I don't know. That just feels really basic to me.
It should, but, should versus reality.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, let's move on from that. That kind of wraps up the Wrath of the Old Gods. But I want to make
Whispers
one more...
of the Old Gods.
Whispers of the Old God. Oh, God. I want to make one more... kind of, so I'm going to call it the deep fried meta, and in the deep fried meta, we deep fried the meta, and it's kind of like that, but it's really more of a presentation. I kind of put together some stats and some calculations about what the change will be, what the Whispers of the Old Gods will be, what impact it'll have.
Go on.
And we don't know, because the impact on the meta of each expansion has to do with where the expansion is pushing the meta, right? Like, if they released a bunch of cards that were, all spider tanks and crocs, the meta wouldn't go anywhere, right? Even though they could release 500 new cards. On the other hand, if they just released 20 new cards, but give them a good offering bonus, and they were like crazy cards, you could really upset the balance and do crazy things to the meta. But the number of cards you release is one of the two factors that end up dictating how the meta is going to change. The other factor is what I was talking about with just how far the cards go. So in terms of number of cards, we have this dilution issue, right? Where if Blizzard keeps putting out the same number of cards in every expansion, they can start taking cards away in Classic, but if Arena remains wild, then it's just going to have a smaller and smaller impact each arena. So I'm making the assumption that WOG is going to follow the same thing TGT followed, which is to have a 25% bonus rather than the LOE 50% bonus, because LOE was an adventure and had fewer cards. And I'm also making the assumption right now, for now, that they're not giving classic cards an additional offering percent bonus, which they might, to be honest. And I've been pushing for an offering bonus to classic cards for a while now. But if that's the case, then here is the percent increase in meta change based purely on number of cards introduced, right? From Classic to Nax is plus 8%. From Nax to GVG is plus 30%. So that's why when Nax came out, it didn't change the arena that much. And then GVG came out, and we were in a whole different world. It's because you added 30% more cards. Now, from GVG to BRM was only 4%. So that's why not much change between GVG and BRM, right? Things got a little bit slower. But overall, it wasn't the biggest difference. Then from BRM to TGT, we got a 23%, but that was the first time the offering bonus was introduced. So it's an effective almost 30%. So once again, we have the same shift as GVG had. And you saw it in the meta. You saw it in the meta. The pre-TGT and the post-TGT meta were night and day, just like GVG. LOE comes along, and that's plus 6% or plus 16% net once you unwind the old meta bonuses from TGT and then add the 50% bonus from LOE. So 16% is like half a meta change. But it didn't quite feel like that, right? Like, LOE feels like a whole different meta than TGT.
Yeah. And I think some of it has to come from the class offerings, right? Because the class offerings really make a huge difference. So you give some, you take some away, and then suddenly, even though you may introduce a lot of cards versus very little cards, the class offerings hold significant weight.
Yes. And obviously, the more good cards you introduce, the more it matters. The more bad cards you introduce, the less it matters. And the more common cards you introduce, the more class cards you introduce, the more it matters. And the more legendaries you introduce, the less it matters. So I didn't calculate all that in. This is just back of the napkin. I did this like a half hour before we started the Lightforge. And LOE definitely benefited from that because there were 2 class commons for the first time of an adventure set introduced to each class. And you saw how that affected Warrior. And they were not just 2 class commons; those were also the plus 50% offering rate cards. But anyway, with a net 16% card overturn change, we had a pretty different meta. So anything more than that, I'm almost certain we're just going to have a wholly different meta. WOG is 134 cards minus the 17 cards that have to do with Cthulhu, including Cthulhu himself, is 18%. Now, plus a 25% bonus, taking away the LOE bonus, becomes 26%, which is very, very close to the 30% changes we had in GVG and TGT, which is to say that what you should expect when WOG comes out is nothing less than a very much a completely different meta. Not a evolution of a meta, not a small change in the meta, but just a flat line, right? Like, after GVG, Arena was not the same as Arena before. If you were good in Arena before, that doesn't mean you were good in Arena, then you had to adapt, right? Same with TGT. Same with WOG now. I know some people are making a kind of a big deal about the whole, like, we're not going to see as many cards in here, and there's already a larger base, so the dilution effect and whatever. But the dilution effect, after Blizzard introduced the offering bonus, has been very much, like, dampened down. So, in today's Deep Fried meta, I just wanted to show that if the cards themselves are different enough, along the same ways that the cards in most expansions are, this is going to have a very major impact on the meta. It will just be a different meta.
Yeah. And I don't find it that surprising because for me, I was like, oh yeah, of course there's going to be a monumental change. And then sort of when you talk about this, I'm like, okay, I guess some people don't think like me.
Yeah. I mean, people are on different scale, right? Like, I'm sure people think there's going to be a big change, but they're also thinking, well, Arena's still wild. It's not going into the standard transformation.
Right, and you already have like you've piled on
Yeah.
all of these expansions already. So no,
Yeah, and it's
I
not like
totally
WOG
understand.
has more cards than other expansions. It has less cards
Yeah, yeah.
for the arena anyway.
Right. Exactly. No, yeah. I mean, look, I'm ready for the big meta change. I'm ready for everyone to sort of test themselves, see kind of which players pick up the new meta the fastest, which players identify the sort of how the tides are, coming in and going out, because it's going to be shifting every single week, right? It's going to be
Hmm.
like at least a month and a half before things settle down. So people have to sort of like see where it's going, anticipate, and then settle in at the highest tier. So
Yep.
there we
Yep.
go.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. What's today's question from the goat? Okay, before we get there, uh, we I just want to thank all of the Patreons because the Patreon is essentially our sponsor, and we are part of the Grinning Goat, and people very generously feed the goat over at patreon.com/grinninggoat. And this month, our top goat feeders are 4P, Kasir HG, Capsize Games, HT Rajan, Ingo, Paul H, Talon Dragon, Terrence B, and Ugbog. Thank you guys so much for supporting us and supporting the Grinning Goat, and we hope you continue to do so. So what's today's question from the goat?
Okay, so even though we've gotten the title wrong many times, the new expansion is Whispers of the Old Gods. Now, even though we're talking about legendaries here, and legendaries rarely, very rarely, have a significant impact in the arena, I still want to talk. Look, we still have three gods left, right? Like, what do you think these gods are going to be?
Okay, I don't know anything about Warcraft lore.
No, 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 not
I've
lore, not
read
lore.
very briefly about what these three gods do, but I still
Right,
can't
right,
pronounce their names,
right.
and I'm
Yeah,
not
I
going to
mean, there's
try to
no
pronounce
lore
their names.
left to uncover. Like, people
Okay.
know which ones they are. What are they going to do in Hearthstone?
Okay. So what I'm hoping, and this is the thing, right? We have been shown nothing so far. We have been shown absolutely nothing, and there's a new mechanic every time. Whenever the big kind of releases come out, right? GVG had mechs, which is a whole new thing, and then it had a focus on spare parts and RNG. That's what GVG was all about. TGT had the Inspire mechanic, and then had the jousting mechanic. It's really just a battle cry, but it had a whole jousting thing, and that was its theme. We don't know what the WOG theme is. Cthulhu is really nice as a theme, but can you really call it's like a minor theme if anything else, because it's just a set of cards that support one
It's
card.
on its own island.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
kind of like separated it out and made its own thing. What is the actual big theme when it comes to, and these are all themes with actual effects in game, not just like, oh, it's a corrupted Healbot, right? Like that's not a real mechanic like theme. It doesn't push the game in any direction. It's just a cool card. It's something that you would more expect to see in an adventure than you are expecting to see in a big release. So I'm sure one of them is somewhere, at least one, probably more, and we just don't know it yet. So hopefully, what I think is happening is they're dividing it into four different sets of kind of like mini themes.
Yeah.
Cthulhu being on its own island is one of them, and the three others will have various different effects. And I'm not talking about they're going to support the legendary one, because if they were, they would have announced that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead, what it is going to be like maybe one of the old gods has a theme of, I don't know, like battle cry, and battle cry is going to be the theme of like a quarter or like a fifth of the new cards that are released as well, right? Something along those lines. But hopefully something more innovative than something existing, or at least we'll have one or two of those.
Yeah. All right. So my guess is because like Tavern Brawl and the adventures that have come out so far, in terms of single player adventures and Tavern Brawl, I think those have been sort of like testing grounds for what they can put into constructed, and how well
Mm-hmm.
received it is, how confusing it is, how OP it is. So my guess for one of the old gods would be something like um, 10 mana, 8/8 minion. And what it does is at the end of every turn, it randomly. So I think this was an adventure. And so this is my ability. 10-mana 8/8 at the end of your turn, randomly basically turn your minions into a random minion of +1 mana and turn your enemy's minions into -1 mana randomly. So you can't have the RNG factor. It's a huge swing without actually having the like immediate damage effect, right?
Mm.
And it is a play on the board as well, you know?
Mm.
So like the sort of theme could be like the theme in that adventure in which, you know, like
Right.
its minions are all like battle cries, right? Like you said, so it's battle cries, and then the god basically capitalizes on all of these battle cries by sort of like making them into legitimate minions of a higher mana cost and sort of reducing your enemies.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's just something I'm putting out there.
Yeah. Mm. Anyway, I'm just looking forward to what those other mechanics are. Once we know those mechanics, then we would have a better sense of where the arena meta is going. Because right now we just have some individual cards that don't make much of a theme, and so we can't even I can't even infer what's going to happen in the future and what they're going to release. But hopefully they'll have like some kind of release and we'll have a better idea of where it's going. They have 100-something cards to print out. I can't imagine they're just gonna print out like regular, no new mechanic things. That would be like such a huge disappointment to everybody. That and they had so much time to do this too, right? Like you were saying before, they have more time to think about this one than they have like all the other ones. So looking forward to what Blizzard brings us.
Definitely.
We were gonna do card good bad today, but I think in the interest of time, we can just do this next week.
Poor little Micro Machine, man.
Poor little Micro Machine getting bumped. But this was a request from a listener for us to discuss Micro Machine, and I love it. Micro Machine is such a huge potential for discussion, and we'll do that next week. We're just running short on time right now, and I do really want to get to talking about the Shaman before we start our Shaman run. Merps, you do not look like you are very interested in the Shaman.
It is no, I mean I've been waiting the entire time to talk about this, obviously. I'm glad you're
this is the most exciting part of the Lightforge. This is what are the Wrath of the Old Gods? Who cares about that? Oh, sorry, the Whispers? You care even less about Whispers.
Whispers, exactly. All right, let's talk about the Shaman. Shaman, I'm gonna blow everyone's mind here. It's just not a very good class in the arena. I know, really? It's surprising. And we talked about the Shaman a couple of times, and the things that were holding it back still hold it back, right? Our sort of RNG in the draft, RNG in the totems, RNG in your spells. The fact that Overload requires really careful turn planning. Also, the fact that you really need buffs for your totems in order to utilize them. So if you don't get the Flame Tongue and Dire Wolf to a smaller extent, really your totems are not doing anything.
Stormwind Champion, Thunderbluff Valiant.
Sure, but yeah, you need stuff to complement your totems, really. Yep. Because sometimes you get a lucky healing totem and you're very happy about it. But other than sort of the spell totem, when you can't predict whichever one you're gonna get, so you can't rely on it. And that all adds up to Shaman just being a very awkward class. Now, the ceiling is incredibly high, and they have some of the best cards in the game. Hex is pretty much the best removal in the game. You have Fire Ellie, which
is the ceiling high?
I think the ceiling is very, very high. Yeah.
Because what good cards do they actually have? Besides Hex and Fire Elemental.
Rockbiter is, I think, one of the best small removals in the game.
Sure, but that's just a good card, compared to a Priest.
Oh yeah, well no, Priest.
Or even a Warrior, right?
Yeah. Look, Priest needs the board to kind of sort of realize its full potential, right? Shaman just needs good cards to realize its potential. It doesn't need the board. Shaman is actually very good at playing off the board. But then if you're playing off the board as Shaman, you need that card quality to really bring you to victory. So different perspectives on both of these classes, which I think
Yeah,
everyone
but
will
like if you're
admit.
talking about dominating cards, right? Like Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death are
Sure.
like extremely dominating cards, right?
Yeah, they are.
Like you have a
Mhm.
common board clear in Holy Nova, you have your Tempo Enforcers, you have your Shrinkmeisters, you have Valens, which is just insane, Power Word Shield. The Shaman doesn't have any of that. Like, Rockbiter doesn't quite compete with that, right? Like, it's like a little, kind of the same, but like a little bit off. Fire Elemental, definitely above that.
Well, I mean, if
Hex,
you're just
definitely
talking about
there.
quality here,
But that's what you mean by like having a high
yeah, yeah, no, no, no. And I think the shaman and the priest have incredibly high ceilings and specifically very high card quality, you know?
yeah.
Both of them have very high card quality in terms of commons and rares. And if you like meet up with an 11 win shaman or an 11 win priest, like you're scared, right? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this guy has the hexes and the Vanguard's Chosens, just all of the premium cards, and you know they're going to have like the good minions for both classes as well, right? So I think the comparison to priest is sort of like accurate in terms of these are more conditional classes which are weak not because they lack good cards but just because of how the game is structured and the importance of a ping and just like the fact that if you don't draft those cards both of these classes are just much weaker than the ping classes and the faster classes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think the Shaman just also doesn't have a wide variety of good cards. Like it's flame tongue. Like on the common side, for me at least, it's flame tongue, it's hex, it's fire elemental. The rest are just like they could be good, but they're not going to win you or lose you the game. It's like getting it's maybe like the same swing as getting like some Dark Iron Dwarfs or something, right? Like it's a good card, you definitely like it, but you're not going to be like, oh man, my deck has a Dark Iron Dwarf. It's over now. It's over. I have a 12-win run.
You
It's
could say
time to
that,
end this.
but I
But
don't
like
know how
you get
sure
like
it's
three fire elementals or something. You're like, oh man, this is we got this.
too slow.
Um,
Fire always too slow
yeah,
now.
okay, fine.
uh
Three's probably not the best.
yeah, yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm getting at. You have a lot of wide variety of these kinds of cards now for like warrior, for like priest, whereas the shaman variety really seems like it's not as bad as like warlock, right? But or like hunter, um, but it's also not like warrior or priest. And I'm just talking about the classes that don't have pings. So it's kind of in that middle zone in terms of card quality for me. In terms of like what you call like upside. I don't think the shaman has like warrior and priest are in my opinion the upside classes. Shaman's kind of like a tier below that when it comes to just being able to like draft your way into a win, right? Into like a really good run.
That's something I'll actually disagree with. I think
Mm-hmm.
you can eat like if we're talking about this hypothetical ceiling, right, where you just get premiums after premiums after premiums. I think that like super premium shaman deck just rolls over other classes in terms of just efficient removals, in terms of powerful minions, in terms of just like small
Mm-hmm.
synergies with power mace and stuff like that. They got the removals with lightning storm and even like there's sort of like pseudo AoE for
Yeah, but those are
common.
all rares. They're like very rarely seen.
Well, no, even forked lightning, lightning bolt, crackle, those are still really, really good.
Mm.
And yeah, I think shamans can just really roll over any deck if you have the super premiums. It's just you don't get them, you know.
Yeah.
So I do think it belongs in the priest, and you would lump the warrior in there, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
I had a 12-win shaman a couple weeks ago, and we took down. This is on YouTube, by the way. It's called I Am Become Rend, and it's named I Am Become Rend because we took down six, maybe seven, like top tier legendaries through the run. Like we had to face like Tyrion, Boom, Deathwing, Onexia, like you name it. And the deck worked, obviously, but it worked because I had what you were talking about earlier, which is the kind of the totem triggers, right? Like multiple flame tongues, thunder buff valiants, like your dire wolves, things like that. And then I had a couple of other decks with Shaman that also went really far that also had those. And then the last 2 runs I did with Shaman, I didn't have those cards. I had other good cards. I had my Hexes, I had some Fire Elementals, I had like, Flame Tongues, Fire Guard Destroyers, and whatever, right? But I couldn't trigger my totems and use them as effectively. I maybe had like 1 Flame Tongue, or like 1 Thunder Bluff, or like 1 Dire Wolf. And so I couldn't reliably hit the hero power button, expecting that I will eventually be able to make this totem, like if I keep the board, I will eventually be able to make this totem do something later on. And without that, like it falls apart pretty badly.
I mean, if you have a useless hero power, you are playing a terrible class, right?
Yeah.
And the Shaman does have ways to do it. You just have to draft ways to use your hero power, which really sucks.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. That's a very good way to put it. You have to draft ways to use your hero power, unlike other classes. And it's still better than a warrior, right? Where you can't even draft ways to use your hero power.
But you draft weapons, which, it's a way for you to sort of like it's not totally out of line with what you do as a warrior, right? Is it good?
Okay, but we all know that totems give you more health than the warrior hero power.
It does. It definitely does.
So
people have to remove totems. But well, that's why you don't get as many weapons as Shaman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they can't give totems to warrior just because it's like, well, you're giving them better ways to taunt and you're giving them board presence. Can't do that.
I also don't want to see.
It also doesn't make any sense at all.
I was like, why is that? Okay.
Look, we're playing a fantasy card game. Nothing has to make sense.
All right. I think that's it for the Lightforge. I think we're all talked out. We've covered the Whispers of the Old Gods, all the cards that have come out so far that will be available in the arena, and some that aren't. We will not be doing this again in the future to this amount of details. If you guys are wondering what's going on, we'll announce this again in the next Lightforge, but I'll be doing a video series, much like I did for TGT, where we look at the major themes of the cards that are released, and then we talk like big picture things, and we go over the cards. That'll be a better place for it than the Lightforge, because it's not like LOE. It's not like we have a handful of cards to review every week. I hope. It could be the case that like 2 weeks from now, we're like, all right, we've seen 10 cards so far. Let's just review them one by one. But we're going to talk more generally in the Lightforge than that. We're going to talk about like what we want to see, how it'll impact the meta. We'll talk about some specific cards, but we won't do like a census of all the cards that Blizzard releases on the Lightforge going forward. That's it from us at the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps.
See you next week.